and we're going to talk about one-game parlays, sometimes called same-game parlays as well. And this is a relatively new phenomenon, Chelsea, where this was not a thing 5, 6, 7 years ago. But now they're becoming one of the most popular bets at many, many sports books. In fact, in particular sports books, in last year's Super Bowl, 31% of the bets on the game were on one-game parlays. And this is a trend that started back in 2015. It's interesting because these weren't offered. This is more of a recent offering from sports books, but overseas, there was a sports book that started taking recommendations from sports bettors, like, what would you like to bet on in this game? What would you like to bet on in this game? And they would take these recommendations and they would say, okay, we'll let you bet on it. So once this became sort of a trend, in the 2015 Champions League final, there was a book that allowed these one-game parlays, and they got a ton of action, and then eventually they sort of gained popularity. So is this something that you do on a regular basis? I don't do a whole lot of one-game parlays. I know they offer them at BetMGM. I tend to not do it, but it's becoming sort of the hot trend as far as bettors are concerned.
I think you do it if you just want to have something fun to bet on, because that's the basis of a parlay. You should know that these are not high return or highly hittable, I guess, when it comes to the betting world, because the odds are long for a reason, because you need a lot of things to go right. But yeah, I bet on them. They're fun.
I like betting on them quite a bit. At least I take that back. I haven't done many, but there are times when I think, ooh, I would love this. I would love this. Because ultimately what you're doing is, this is about game script. Like, if you're going to bet a one-game parlay, you have to have an idea of how a game is going to play out. And based on how you think that game is going to play out, that's where you place your bets. So I'm fascinated by it. I tend to stay away a little bit more than most people, just because I know that ultimately these are winners for the sports books. And even they admit that you don't really get the odds that you should get. So that's one thing to keep in mind as well. They're fun to bet on, but ultimately the odds should probably be longer because these are more difficult to hit. And that's why ultimately the books end up making money off this. They wouldn't probably offer it if they didn't. But I think one sportsbook operator said in this article that was posted, it was on ESPN, that, look, is it possible to win these things? Of course. Once in a while, sure. But on the whole, they don't really come home that often. But it's that appeal of the parlay, which is you bet a little and you can win a lot.
This is a type of bet that seems easy until you start actually betting on them. And there's always that one leg. Usually it's the most obvious leg. If you put quarterback passing yards in there, it'll be like some kind of blowout, and Joe Burrow or somebody will only end up with like 175 yards, which is crazy. You would think that he would stack up the yards, but we see this all the time. So it's not nearly as easy as it looks, but I think there are smart ways to play this, because you were talking about game script. So if you want to play this in a smart way, make sure all of your bets are correlated. For instance, if you are taking 3 anytime touchdown bets, do not put an under in there as well, because you're rooting for touchdowns. And at the end of the game, if you need one more player to score a touchdown to hit your bet, sometimes it'll push it over the total as well. So make sure all of your legs are correlated and not going against each other.